welcome back and thank you for staying tuned. You're still watching Newspaper Review on High Impact Television. Esther and I have given you a review of the front pages of the papers this morning. Right now we are joined by our guest in person of Timi Olaguju, an analyst, a public policy analyst, a lawyer, and a number of things, I must say. It's good to have you in the studio. Good morning, Barrister Timi Olaguju.
Thank you for having me.
Good morning and thank you for joining us.
It's a delight to have you join us here. Let's go straight into the details of the day. There's a particular headline on the Punch newspaper that says Nigerian students face tough times in UK as tuition soars by 60%. I know that just yesterday as well, there was a conversation around the fact that more Nigerians will join the Japa train owing to the hardship that the country is experiencing at this time. Now, getting these statistics and getting these updates this morning about what our fellow Nigerians are going through there, what is your reaction to this headline from your perspective? Let's start from there.
Oh, well, the truth about it is that even beyond the possible increase in tuition fee, the floating of the naira itself, and the lack of availability of foreign exchange for students itself had posed a problem, which meant that a student had to do at the black market rate most often to pay school fees, and so that increased, fees in that sense. Then now to add that to what the current trend is with the 60% increase is going to be a significant hit on, on both the students and as well as our, what's it called, the cash flow from Nigeria. Because when you look at some parents, they make naira and then pay for school fees abroad, but that itself brings us home to the reality that we need to quickly run away or go away from our la cram, la pour, la pass, la forget standard of education. Well, we need to start to find ways to make education return back to its old glory. The old glory when the Saudi family would visit UCH teaching hospital. That's the UI teaching hospital, for medical services, and the quality of staff and students, attested to why that visit was possible. We need to, return to those old days when education was what it is, in context of proper impactation of knowledge, as well as also take into cognizance the fact that the realities of the time requires that our educational system also gets upgraded to meet with the innovative demands of this time. For instance, you'll be shocked that, as a lawyer, I know that I specialize more in tech law, and interestingly, as much as in other parts of the world, you can, there's cyberspace law as part of their courses, in the UK. So someone that wants to specialize may have to then go, you don't have that in Nigeria, right? And so those are the key questions, in that context. Now, take that across the different, curriculum or pedagogy. So we need a proper rejig of,
delicate conversation.
a proper rejig. And I think that for those who intend to Jakba, the interesting part is that, for so long, people have been told that the route towards traveling overseas or abroad had to be education.
Yes.
But that is a falsehood. The fact shows that, for example, recently there's this report that Germany will be needing close to, across Africa, will be needing close to 500,000 health workers, right? You saw that report. So the route towards, and that simply means that you do not have to have been educated in Europe or America before you can get that kind of opportunity. Right?
Yeah.
So that tells you that the route towards movement, a more logical, cheaper, strategic route will be acquire the education within the borders of Nigeria, ensure that you commit yourself to developing skills and capacity, and use that as a means to, you know, enter the whatever market, the global market, labor market.
Barrister Timi,
Yes.
you know, when you talk about developing yourself within the borders of Nigeria, acquire education in Nigeria, that leads me to talk about the Nigerian educational system itself.
Yes.
Now, we know that it can actually be very frustrating. Honestly, yes, that's the honest truth.
True.
You apply for a course to run a course for 4 years, and eventually you're using 6, 7 years.
Yes.
And most people get tired, they get frustrated. And the fact that in Nigeria, we've not been able to come to terms or make our education system something that is encouraging for a number of young adults out there to say, I want to actually pursue. You see a lot of people have their degree in Nigeria, and when they travel, they are going for another degree because they feel like the knowledge they've gotten or everything they've gotten is not enough. So that brings me to our educational system. We know the ASU strike is a conversation that if we want to go into, we wouldn't leave here today. Shouldn't we start with rejigging our own educational system, and what are those measures, what are those strategies that we need to put in place as a nation, as a country, to rejig our own education system, to reduce this whole jackpot train and seeing our students travel out in droves?
Rejigging the educational system is a key point. I perfectly agree. However, rejigging the educational system may not necessarily, you know, curb the jackpot train. It might even increase it.
If you rejig the educational system.
Yes, because it means that in that sense, it means that the Nigerian, because what makes people jackpot really is that there is a search for something that they feel, an environment that they feel compensates their efforts.
The target greener pasture.
Yes.
Moving their families.
Yes, exactly.
They just go to learn. The idea is
even the essence of learning is also that, you know, opportunities, they can make the best of who their God-given capacities in that sense, which is fair, right? Ant and sugar, when you ant will not gravitate towards salt, to gravitate towards sugar. It's common sense, which is not common sense though. But the thing is that the opportunity for us with our population is that when we do that, two things will happen. One, our skills become desirable on a global scale. Now, you know, the remittances from diaspora funding is a key part of our GDP.
I mean, it does a lot in our
banks, So the point there is that is one key opportunity that it brings to us. Second part is that our educational system becomes desirable for other people to start then come and seek, you know, educational opportunities in Nigeria. So that is revenue, two-way win. It's always a win-win when you do that, you know. So that's the key point about rejigging. You have some thoughts there?
Well, you know, when you talked about rejigging and then people tend to come in and that brings in revenue, it just took my mind somewhere, which has to do with, it's all connected. And I wouldn't want us to divert, but it took my mind to insecurity. Now, we say that when we do that, people would want to come in to learn. But are we considering our insecurity, the security situation of the country? We've had cases where students are kidnapped, even people that are not Nigerian students. We've had cases where they are killed, schools are attacked, gunmen go into schools to kidnap people, to kill people. So don't you think all of these things are connected?
Yes, they are. It's an entire framework. It's a set and part of the subset. However, the challenge, you know, is not a Nigerian challenge. It's a global challenge.
The security challenge.
Oh yes, even in the United States of America, we hear a lot of gun violence, you know, all over the news. But it doesn't stop people from traveling there. You know, it doesn't stop the U.S. Embassy from being bombarded with, you know, applications, right? And so what you promote is what becomes popular. Right? And so the core challenge is what efforts has the Ministry of Information, Culture, the National Orientation Agency, because security is not just about security in that sense, it's also about the perception of security. So those two things must go hand in hand. As you're working towards, you know, stemming the tide of kidnapping, terrorism, and the likes, it's also important to work towards the perception that we have of Nigeria, and Ghana is doing a fantastic job with that.
You're giving some credit to Sarah. You're going to make a video.
Well, I wasn't even going to say anything, but I feel proud. Please go ahead.
Yes, so that's the reality.
Okay.
And you see that there's this push around African Day, and a lot of people from diaspora are going to Ghana. A lot of musicians now, even recently I heard that Wizkid's second home. But the point there is the fact that it is not just about security; it's also about the perception of security. However, coming back to the core issue of education, as it were, right? It's important to understand that, look, we don't see a lot of private sector, public sector partnership in the educational system. So, for example, you have situations where in those kind of educational systems, you have where there is a kind of partnership where they have career fairs, where private stakeholders have hubs in those universities. I want to see myself going to, say University of Ibadan, where I finished from, and then having, a hub, where you have such hubs sponsored by, say, a Microsoft, right? An innovation hub, where young people can come and learn some things that, pertains to maybe some skills in digital storytelling or, stuffs like that. But the reality is that real learning is self-learning. When Bill Gates came to Nigeria, he said something. He said that, look, he talked about the reality somewhat of the educational system in Nigeria, but also emphasized that education in the 60s and 70s has changed. In other words, you have the virtual world. You have YouTube, you have Coursera, you have edX, which means that you can learn online some of the skills that, you need to position you.
I think I want to come in there. You're trying to say that our brick and mortar universities.
Thank you for even raising this point.
Are you saying that our brick and mortar classrooms, may not be?
It's a good point. You know why it's a good point? Because you've given me a room to address an issue.
Okay.
But the point there is the fact that first is that you need a holy matrimony of what works and what wows.
Okay.
And so the brick and mortar, yes, very important. But it also must come in line with, technological advancement and innovation. And one of such innovations is the fact that, have you noticed there's a particular online platform? I'm sure they didn't advertise on TV. They should really, but I'm not going to mention their name.
Yes, please.
But they actually are churning out a lot of, mini MBA programs.
Okay.
Some bank CEOs are even part of it. Mama Obio Zikwesili, I think, is also a key part of that platform. I don't know if you've heard it. It's an online.
Yes, I know about it.
In fact, it starts with an N, and ends with a D, right? So the point there is the fact that we need our Nigeria Universities Commission, right, the Ministry of Education, to start considering rejigging the policy framework to accommodate online open universities.
Okay.
Well,
and the opportunities.
I know that is valid, and I know that aside the brick and mortar, those of us here have had opportunities to do online classes, definitely. But let's talk about what our tuition or what Nigerian students are doing for the economy of maybe the UK, and the disparity, the difference in what we pay as bills. Parents are begging federal government for concession, But I'm trying to think about it. At what point do we come to realize that when my parents earn in Naira and send it to me in the UK, for instance, and I'm paying in pounds, they are losing, because what they are earning, when it's converted to pounds, it reduces in value. But I'm paying a government. At what point will the UK realize that these people are also funding our system? Or am I not getting it?
Yes, you're in contextual point, because it's called economics of scale, right? The more people, but it's a bit shrewd in the sense of perception. People feel that the UK somewhat is doing them a favor, but in reality, we are also doing the UK a favor, right? Because the massive funds, right, aside the contribution of Nigerians significantly, in the UK, and not just the UK, across the world, whether in literature, whether in science, whether in the education, right? Entertainment, So the point there is the fact that, and look, even entertainment, you notice that our stars, our superstars, they're always quickly given visas to go do concerts,
shows,
because you know that after the show, value-added tax. Value-added tax come to. So we are, we have soft power as Nigeria. The point is that, do we see it as a leverage for negotiation? That's where the core challenge is. And so, but the point also is the fact that, we seem not to also value what we have. Some of us had the privilege of doing a scholarship program in the US, where I studied in a university. But before then, I studied in Nigeria. I did a program in University of Lagos, in University of Ibadan, law. I did another program in University of Lagos. Before then, doing the University of Virginia program. Now, the point I'm trying to drive at is the fact that we seem to have something working for us, but we do not understand the value that we have.
Is it attractive enough?
Look, it is how you call your calabash that they will call it. Do you understand? Do you know how many professors, Nigerian professors are medical doctors trained in Lutz that are doing fantastically well?
Let's talk about
or even the hostels that look like jungles.
Talking about those hostels and all that, I really would have loved us, but in about 2 minutes here, there's a particular conversation about tuition hike in Nigeria. Now, the reps have asked the NUC to halt the hike in tuition fees. There's been a cry about the fact that tuition fees have been hiked with over 300%, and parents, guardians are lamenting the situation. We've analyzed all of these things in a short while. Now, coming to Nigeria now, and we're seeing that with the economic situation, we understand that the conversation around student loan just came up. Seeing a varsity hike, is that the way to go? Can you just give us a response in 1 minute?
No.
Right.
Firstly, the biggest manifesto is the Constitution. And Chapter 2, that's fundamental objectives and directives of state principle, says that it's important that a government drives towards free education, primary, secondary. That's the standard, except reasonable to do so, right? And so, when you look at the reality and the economic situation of a country like Nigeria, there are countries that actually do free education.
Yes.
You talk of Finland, you talk of Scandinavian countries, and it works for them. They have the lowest levels of crime, highest levels of social stability, and all that indicators, right? So it is not entirely impossible for Nigeria to look to those countries as example, rather than look to countries where tuition fees keep going up and up. You understand the reality. What is the average pocket? Nigeria is a country that out of the over 70 million people who are banked, right? Less than 1%, 99% of them are people that do not even have up to 500,000 in their bank account. Right? Laying that they have 500,000. So in a country where there's no insurance for health, you have to look, health situations, it's out of pocket mostly. Or you look for herbal solutions or spiritual solutions. So the reality is, it's when you make policy, it's important to look at the policy environment, the realities of the Nigerian situation, right? And evidence is the end of argument. When you look at when we practiced free education in the Southwest during Awolowo's time, there was really no oil. Where did they get the funds from? But they achieved that, and that allowed the kind of sporadic success that we had in terms of the children of farmers and nobody's becoming somebody.
See, but Timi Olagunju, you see this conversation, it's not something that we can actually end here. I believe that if it's okay for me to tag it, we'd have a part 2 of this conversation where we would have enough time to actually go into these details, the concept of free education. But we'd have to end the conversation here because of our time, but we'll do well to, have you on the show again and have an in-depth review and analysis of this concept of free education and education system in Nigeria. It's been a delight having you on the show.
Thank you for having me.